You're muted if you're not already. Okay, great. We might have a few more people joining us, so we'll just wait one moment. I see a few people that are joining still. Okay, wonderful. We'll go ahead and get started here. Good evening and welcome. I'm Audrey Barcio, Assistant Professor with the School of Art here at Ball State University. And I want to begin with a special thank you to Fred Meyer and Ball State University for making tonight's lecture possible. Now, it's with great pleasure to introduce the 2021 Fred Meyer Lecture guest, Sharon Louden. Sharon Louden is an artist, educator, advocate for artists, editor of the Living and Sustaining a Creative Life book series, and also the artistic director of Chautauqua Visual Arts. Sharon holds a BFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and MFA from Yale University. Her work has been exhibited in many institutions, including the Aldridge Contemporary Art Museum, the Drawing Center, Carnegie Mellon University, Weissman Art Museum, National Gallery of Art, Birmingham Museum of Art, Witherspoon Art Museum, and the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art. Sharon's work is also held in major public and private collections, including the Whitney Museum of American Art, the National Gallery of Art, the Neuberger Museum of Art, Yale University Art Gallery, Witherspoon Art Museum, and the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. Now, let's all give a warm welcome to Sharon Louden.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you, Audrey. Thank you, and with everyone. And I'm really touched and honored that Audrey thought of me and that Fred Meyer. Thank you very, very much, Fred, for having me. And I hope I won't disappoint you or everyone. I'm really grateful to you, not only Fred, I'm grateful to Jessica Calderwood and Mary Carter, and of course, Audrey, for having me. And it's been such a delight to meet a lot of the students the other evening in Jessica's class. And I'm hoping that, or morning, it was morning, and I'm hoping I'll see everybody, as many people as possible on Friday, because we're going to be giving a workshop, right, Audrey? Is that right? And I think that's open to everyone. I hope so. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen and get started, and let's go. Let's do this, right? All right, let's see here. Okay, so can Audrey, can you see that okay?
Looks great.
Okay, whoops, I went a little too early. There we go. Okay, so first I just want to start by saying that I'll give this information later, but one of the reasons why I start with my contact information is I really believe that these lectures can be beginnings of conversations. I always have the philosophy that whether I'm teaching or I'm meeting with people or traveling and giving talks such as this, I think it may be a seed for exchange, communication opportunities. So I'll give my information later, but if anybody ever wants to contact me, feel free to. I'm happy to continue the conversation. Just to share with you too, the background, that was at Denali in Alaska during one of my tours, and I'm gonna talk about those tours too. So as Audrey had mentioned, I'm an artist and also the editor of a few books. I'm also an advocate for artists, and I work for Creative Capital, the Joe Mitchell Foundation. I also teach at the School of Visual Arts MFA students in New York City, and just work with a whole bunch of people. I always think of, and I have multiple hats, I always think of that it's hard, I think, which is good, to define who an artist is today. I like the gray of it. But I also love the fact that I can choose hats. When I always think of myself when I open up a closet, all these hats come out, and then I get to choose what I wear at any given moment. That's like a huge privilege. So I would not call myself a painter, drawer, sculptor. I work in all different media, and my belief is that the media assists the idea and the practice. So I went to school, as Audrey said, School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and then Yale University a year after graduating from SAIC. And I worked very figuratively at SAIC. And then I broke the figures down into lines to create these anthropomorphic forms. I've had some trauma in my life that really shifted for me. The fact that abstraction, I've been hiding behind it for a long time. And actually I'm coming out of that and doing a lot of group projects and recognizing it later in my life. But these forms that I work with, they take on their in multiples, they take on and create environments for inclusive conversation. So what I'm going to do is, just to prove that I am an artist by the definition of what other people would say in being a maker, if you will, I'm going to just take you through one idea from one medium that expresses a whole body of work. And so I also want to just share too that before I go on any further, I love talking about money, because it's really important that, in my view, that artists are clear about money and not ashamed of it, and not hiding behind it. We are not, we don't come from desperation, we come from abundance. And so if we're coming from a point of abundance, to be able to be proud of where we are, but I don't think pride, though, is necessarily arrogant. It's just confident, and at the same time being humbled. And like I said, it's a privilege to be an artist. When I graduated from School of the Art Institute of Chicago and Yale University, I amassed a huge amount of debt, over $100,000 at that time, leaving Yale in 1991. And I paid off those debts in 10 years through a lot of fungibility. I love that word, fungibility, funge. What I love about that word is the idea of moving things around, that other people have, not necessarily me, although I learned this, that value debt and moving things around creatively. My husband's a jazz musician, a political activist. We live here in Queens, in AOC country. And he also is just a brilliant thinker out of the box. I learned so much from so many people. We paid those debts off in 10 years by moving money around, but also applying for everything that fit. And during the time that we did that, you know, I would send out emails, and I would send out, apply for things. I would get public art projects that were small. And what started building up was relationship building, actually, was the idea not just to get an exhibition, but actually what's the core of expression. You know, artists bounce back from failure like no other field. And we also start things from nothing. And I would just say that I think that artists, because we are such creative thinkers and how we can express ourselves in intangible ways and tangible ways, through those experiences, we always collaborate with others, whether it be a gallerist, a museum person, a publisher, a museum, a nonprofit organization, a corporation, education. We can travel in all these different sectors. So during this time, in the 10 years when I was really active in sending things out and trying to actually develop relationships and create community. And when I got out of school, actually, a lot of artists were doing this. They weren't sharing with a lot of people, certainly not with me. And so I thought, I've got to do this, and I'm going to reach out and get to know my community and reach out to people who have the similar language that I speak. So this is an idea that started, it's called Merge. And it started out as an installation at the Munson Williams Proctor Museum in Utica, New York. people may think, wow, well, Sharon, you're in New York City. Why would you go after these regional museums? What about MoMA? Well, actually, for me, I think the regional museums are far more interesting. They're open, they're more community minded, it's more intimate. I mean, I've never worked with somebody at MoMA. I certainly have interviewed a curator there, and I know some of the curators are very nice people. But a sense for me is that culture is everywhere in different parts of the world, and I pick and choose where I'd like to be able to establish relationships, not get an exhibition. So this piece just started out with these little forms, creating something at Mass, and what started to form was forms that would create a energy, but also an environment that looked like it was of nature, but not really of nature, through this reflective form that I basically bought these reflective sheeting at Home Depot. And then 6 years later, I found a space at Project 4, which no longer exists anymore, in Washington, D.C. And what I think about these ideas are really like actually groupings or forms or cellular, actually alive. They're alive for me. And I think that it's sort of like if they have a different environment, they're going to wear a different piece of clothing or outfit. So whenever I see a space, I think of the idea of how it matches it. It's sort of like picking the colors that match a canvas, or the harmony between the idea and the material itself. And the material includes the space, as I want to disrupt that space, but also collaborate with that space. So they started to sort of go bananas and take over. And then in 2011, or 2010, I've forgotten, I blew it out. I created this piece at the Weissman Art Museum, which was the Frank Gehry's first museum that he built in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this was made of 450 strips of highly reflective aluminum from Canada. We graduated from Home Depot and started seeking out a much more reflective sheeting that's used for all different manufacturing. It's very thin, but you can get a paper cut from it. And what I love to do is take over that space and create this sense of a dialogue with the museum itself. And I really got close to the curator, so much so that we moved to Minneapolis at some point. I'll get to that. But anyway, it took over on the other side of the wall, and it created these shadows that extended the piece itself. There's a Roy Lichtenstein down there. I felt honored to be in that company. But also, whenever I get a project, or I would just say too, 80% of the opportunities, and my husband's my project manager. We've actually known each other 41 years. We went to high school together. I wasn't in love with him in high school, but we've been married for since 1994 and together for a while. And one of the things we do is 80% of the things that we have established or been so humbled to receive as opportunities and relationships that we built have come from cold calls, not just picking up the phone. I would never advocate for that because that's interrupting somebody's space, but actually reaching out. And I actually teach a course of that with Creative Capital. And it's really just common sense of how do you develop a relationship with somebody that you don't know, sort of like dating in a lot of ways. But part of the thing that I feel in getting these, I hate to say that word, in establishing projects like this is that to be able to be empowered as an artist, to be able to choose what I want to do with a budget. I don't feel that it's right for me as an artist to keep so much money when our community is suffering and actually not making a living, from a lot of them from a living wage. So every time we have a budget, we insist upon a higher than living wage for the people we work with. And if I'm working with the university, I'm going to work with students because I learn a lot from them, and I hope they learn a lot from me. So in this process, we worked with a lot of University of Minnesota students where they came up with, I would compose these sort of drawings, and then they would glue them together, and then I would put them up and compose them. Now, this idea went from University of Minnesota to University of Connecticut. We applied for a public art project, and this is permanent. This was a $235,000 project, I think, or 250. I forgot what it was, in that range. Now, you may think that's a lot of money for the students out there, but it's actually not. Usually an artist makes 20% of that, which is great. But what we do is we put in the amounts of money that we want to pay people. For this job, we paid, I think it was about a dozen people, anywhere between $35 to $50 an hour. Plus we give them a per diem every day. It pay their transportation, their lodging, and try to make them as happy as possible, because we're all there together. And this was in Storrs, Connecticut. At the time, there was only one Pizza Hut. So it wasn't really a lot of fun, I think, for some people, although they created their own residency, and we really try to choose to work with artists. So this, it's hard to see this, but on the left-hand side is looking straight up to a second floor, and the right-hand side is looking straight down through that floor. And then from there, I started to have this project evolve into these, I saw these big sheets that the vendor that provided these sort of ribbon-like sheets. And I started thinking, why can't I make these gestures bigger and include more people in the project? Because it naturally reflects people. That's how it's most inclusive. And it also has this, like I said, collaborative nature with architecture. So I started using bigger sheets, and this is at the Asheville Art Museum. And then the one thing I did too was, wow, I really want to connect with people when I'm not here. So I said, you know, forget, let's break down the wall of exclusivity, and let's put up a sign that says, if you want to get in touch with the artist, just tag her on Instagram and she'll write you back. And sure enough, for 2 years, because everybody loves a lot of bling. I really do believe that. And I love it. And there's just a lot of reflection in this stuff. It's gorgeous. And I love the malleability. I do feel like I have a love affair with this material, but it enables me and the work to evolve from the material, and the idea takes over. So people would send me their pictures of themselves, and I would write them back for 2 years, and people got married in this space. And then you got your bud there too. And I, quite frankly, I was a little terrified about him, because I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna write him back. Although I'm gonna tell you a story, is that in New Hampshire, I gave a talk in New Hampshire, and I switch up these talks a lot, but I had to include the "your bud." And so somebody in the audience at New Hampshire Institute of Art raised their hand and said, oh my God, I know that person. And I said, please text him and ask him, is he a serial killer? Because I was terrified of him. He wasn't. Anyway, it was very, very funny. And I said, tell him to call me. So then I kept using these bigger sheets. And this is at the University of Minnesota in Duluth. Duluth is gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. We had a house fire in Brooklyn in 2013, right when my books came out. And I said to Vince, we went through the World Trade Center. We lived a block and a half from the World Trade Center. And then my husband's studio, drum studio, was flooded by Hurricane Sandy. I said, we're out of here. We got it, New York. So we moved to Minnesota, because Minnesota is the #1 country, it could be, the #1 funder in the country per capita for the arts. And so we were like, yeah, we want to go there, but we still have tons of friends there. My storage is still there. So when I was there, I started getting to know the community. I got to know this wonderful curator who's since retired, and I wanted to meet people in Duluth. Duluth is absolutely stunning. So I did this installation. That's my husband in the corner. And it actually looked like this. There's no photoshopping. And this is actually what it looked like. There's absolutely no photoshopping there. Essentially, when this material is so bizarre material, it has an illusion where it's looks small on the floor, but then when you raise it up, it just expands because it's so reflective. And now currently it's at the University of Wyoming Art Museum in Laramie. That's what it looks like, having a dialogue with all that light and then extending it with those shadows. And then right before COVID, we installed at Maybury Bank in Oklahoma City. And I do a lot of private commissions. Now, I just want to take a pause and talk about values for a second. I think every artist has a choice. You can actually remember, I think if you think about coming through abundance and not from a place of deficit, because we have so many things within ourselves that aren't the currency of cash. There is other forms of currency. So, and I can talk about that later if people want to. But essentially, the Maybury Bank, I was slightly worried about the values of the family of Maybury Bank, because I was like, wow, I wonder if we're going to agree, because Oklahoma City has a lot of people there. Everybody has different values. I'm not going to generalize, but I was a little concerned because I really, once I do a piece, I'm really living with them. And because I don't believe in a one and done, what I call one and done pedagogy, where people just drop in and then they leave. That's the same with when I do a work. I want to stay in touch with them. I want to be able to be available to talk to people, and to, if people have questions or want to say, what the heck is that? Who's an artist today? Who did this? Is she crazy? Well, yeah, maybe a little bit, but I am normal enough that I am wearing some things that are clean. And I don't have paint in my hair. Yes, that is gray. It's not paint in my hair. I wish it were. But I guess what I would say is I did some vetting, and I wasn't sure. No money is pure. But I'm really grateful that we have a lot of similar values. So it gave me a tremendous amount of relief. But I guess the point I would say is that you can choose who you want to work with. I'm going to talk about values a little bit later. My most recent piece was done remotely with a whole group of students in Conway, Arkansas, and at the University of Central Arkansas. And what we did was, these were the people that we worked with. That's myself and my husband there on the top row. And basically we worked with a lot of students. We vetted them, we paid them, and asked them if they want to join in to be able to celebrate not just the people who won the vote for the suffrage 100 years ago, but what about the people that were left out? What about the people identify as women who were left out? And people of color, people of all different genders, and to me, I wanted to represent them. And I also wanted to represent the fact that so many of those people could not buy property at that time, whereas enabling that vote to women, white women really, could still have that access to property. So I thought, yeah, I want to celebrate these people who didn't have that chance. So they were all there, and I was there. I had a head injury, so that's why I look like this. But I couldn't be there because of COVID, but we did work every day. And we actually, I said I needed liaison. So I said, who at the University of Central Arkansas is an adjunct? I want to be able to pay them versus someone who already has security. So again, making the choice. And so this is what it looked like. We actually collaborated, my husband doing the project management. We reached out to a lot of rock and recycled tire companies, and they donated as well as we paid for some of them. And the students actually came up with designs, and some of them had never even understood what abstraction was. And so that was a lesson also in symbolism and how can they represent through colors and shapes, and be able to share and honor those people that were left out. And so we created these, they were called the suffrage rugs, and for people to actually come on there, give performances. And this was just, it just got up there last fall. So community is really important to me, and community is essential in my breathing and living and being around people who are like-minded. And I just want to share with you my closest friend, Harag Vatanian, who is the editor-in-chief of Hyperallergic. If you've never heard of Hyperallergic, Oh my God, it's pretty amazing. I'm really proud to say, I saw this on Twitter that Horag was sharing that 1.7 million people read Hyperallergic last month. It is incredible. He is incredible thought leader. Sorry for the sirens here. Incredible thought leader, artist, critic, curator, wears so many hats. And he also wrote the foreword to The Artist as Culture Producer. And I always believe in cross navigating ideas with different people who have different hats on. So I really believe in this. I wanted to share this with all of you. This is a chart that can be used, I think, with not just personally, but professionally. Who do you choose with in your circle? Do you choose with the people who bring you down, who maybe are not really trustworthy? Or do you choose the people, the few people who are unconditional, that have lots of shared values? And for me, because I concentrate and choose who I want to work with, and certainly even accepting this incredible opportunity to be with you tonight, I had to do a little bit of vetting and to be able to say, what are the values of Ball State University? Oh, I have similar values to Ball State University. I think that I really want to collaborate with them and contribute as I hope I could and hope I could give to that. So having that mindset, I think, really changes how we live our lives and to feel better about what we're doing. So Horag and I actually have collaborated artistically too. I had the privilege of having a studio that was given through a lottery. And so we created this massive installation that was actually a performance space. It was the first time I ever did performances, and no, they're not recorded. And then we moved, I have a gallery on the Lower East Side, and we did an iteration of that at this gallery, and we have performances and conversations there. So we created this crazy environment in the back room. Horag curated some drawings of mine, and we inflated 350 balloons every single week for 5 weeks. I had to send people over to do that. I had to keep them up. And so I'll tell you the best review I've ever received. So I've been very blessed. I feel very grateful to have a lot of different reviews and a lot of great publications. But I'll tell you the best review I've ever received is that, we had an influencer. I didn't even know what an influencer was. This is how ancient I am. I'm 56 years old. I'm behind the trends of things or meaning of things, or I mean, I didn't even know what an influencer was until this. So an influencer comes in and takes a photograph of this piece. He actually poses in the piece. And wow, we had, for the entire time of this show, people coming in and dressing to be in the piece. They were waiting outside in a line. People brought, what was that called? Tripods. They dressed to the nines. And one time me and Horag were there, just, they didn't know what we look like. So we just sat around and asked them, what did you think? And some people actually came in and said, well, we know this is done by two best friends. Some people brought their best friends. Oh, I was so touched by that. And you can see on my website all of the profiles, because I wanted to give them, all of the people, who are mostly people of color, never been in a gallery before, the opportunity to actually share their art and have it stay and not go away, because Instagram, as you know, is like a river. So I really wanted to be able to give, honor them. So you can see that on my website. So as I said, I will say, number one, key to sustaining creative life is community. This is a cohort from Chautauqua Institution. I'm going to talk about Chautauqua at the end. And community is so important to me that I think not only artists have a voice with their work, but they also have a voice in their opinions. And social media, as probably many people know well before I did, that is extremely powerful in translating a voice. So I had a little problem with the idea of the MFA art fair, and you can see what I had issues with. I had many different layers of it, but basically, in short, I didn't like the idea that a institution was taking a commission from artists, and also that were hosting it, and also that artists, then not everyone could actually participate. So how do you judge who gets into this? And then it also props up the gallery world, which gallery world is, the art world is very, very important, but there are all different art worlds out there. And galleries can only support, I think, the 1% of artists and not the 99%. So I didn't think it was entirely fair. So then there was this big kind of conversation, and then Harag saw it and he put it on Hyperallergic, and then it just blew up. And for me, I think that that kind of opinions and talking about community and your values are important. I also I'm not a big believer in pay to play unless if you pay to get in a show, and if you don't get in, you got to get something from it, or and some kind of transparency why your work wasn't considered. Even if they don't necessarily have a reason, they should write you back. So I wrote about this, and then this still is getting traction. It's just on my blog of one of my websites. So the same is in expressing those values. How does a book change people's lives? So wow, books are still very, very powerful. And I thought, how can, well, I'll back up. I'll just say this. I did a panel at the College Art Association conference, maybe, I think it was like 2011 or 10. And I should know these dates, but I'm sorry, I don't know them exactly if they're on my resume. But anyway, the panel was called How to Make a Living with or Without a Dealer. And so there were 400 people that showed up for that panel. And I told the audience, I was like, it's really great that you're here, and it's really not so great you're here. It means that there might be a dependency then on this system that only serves a small amount of people and creates, yes, a lot of validation, but there's a lot of myths to what can be achieved through a gallery, and also maybe not so fair to the gallery to have so much dependence either, because oftentimes they may not meet an artist's expectation. I think of it as more of a business collaboration and exchange, a business partnership. So you never know who's in the audience. And so my publisher was in the audience, and she came up to me afterwards and said, we really want you to write a book. And I said, I can't even write an artist statement. I'm not going to write a book. And then, but the real kicker was my loving, beautiful husband said, you're not going to write a book. And I was like, hell yes, I'm going to write a book. I didn't really write a book. I said, I am going to try, I want to be able to have a book to make space for others. So as an artist, but also my privilege as a white person, as a white woman, how can I make space for others? A book is a powerful way to be able to make space for others. It gives, in the case of my book, voices, in the case of my book, for 40 people each, and I have 3 other books I'm working on. They're delayed because of COVID. Can't really deal with them at the moment. But I love having voices be able to create opportunities for others. And the book, Living a Sustained Creative Life, the first one, it sold out before it got on the shelves. And because we had a house fire in 2013 when the book first came out, I started tapping into my community, which were all different people. And I said, I think we're not going to stay in New York. And we were homeless for 229 days. And I just started calling different venues. And I said, what if we can have forums to talk about how artists live and work and what they need and want? What can they give? And so on the lower left-hand corner, that's at the Hirshhorn. There were over 200 people there. These are all different places. Miami, Providence, Strand. I love the Strand. I will always, they will allow me to launch there and be there for events for the rest of my life. They really helped me when I was poor, literally, in New York, with all that debt. So we went around to so many places. I was on the radio. I was in all different press podcasts. It was insane. And it just took off. And then there were some crazy people, which were awesome, but actually it became a cult where some people would come to just show me, like there's in the books there and the right over my shoulder here, there were pictures of people's work in there. But in these books, somebody would, not these books, actually, somebody else showed me, they would cut out the pictures and look up people, what they look like, the artists, and then replace them with their faces. I was like, oh my God, these are committed people. They're awesome. Freaked me out a little bit, but it was awesome. So through that, we went to over both tours, 164 stops, and met 11,000 people. And you better believe I know what people need and want. And I talk to people every day. And it's very similar. It doesn't matter if you're, quote, a famous artist or you're someone who's just starting out. There's a lot of threads between what artists need and want. And the big thing is integration in society. Well, that has a lot to do with also where we position ourselves. I always ask artists, who's your audience? Is the space that is white, that are white, just white walls, is that the right space? Who's going to come to that? Is that an exclusive space or is it open to others? How do we get other people there? What's the reason for exhibitions? What kind of conversation do you want to have? So in my second book, The Artist as Culture Producer, I'm just to show you some of the artists that are in there so you can see their faces. This is Edgar Arsenault. I can't work with anyone who isn't generous. I love him so much. He's in Los Angeles. He first started a nonprofit organization that now has since collapsed, but still, it doesn't matter. It helped a lot of people in Los Angeles. He also wears so many multiple hats. That's Sharon Butler in her studio in Brooklyn. She does the twocotofpaint.com blog. Then we've got Bad at Sports, where Duncan McKenzie and his partner Richard did over 150 or more episodes. We got Dina Haggag, who's the head of United States Artists now, who was just a curator in Baltimore. She's amazing. Wrote one of the, my screen, I have a battery thing that came up. She's now has evolved into doing so many great activist things for artists. She wrote one of the conclusions. Jean Shin, an amazing artist who also serves on the board of the Joe Mitchell Foundation. Austin Thomas, who did this project called Pocket Utopia that was open to all of these artists. So both tours really, really were important. In the second tour, most of all, we raised a lot of money as a singular person. It was very important for me to be able to pay for artists, just like I pay people in my projects, to pay their expenses and pay them a living wage to share their knowledge, not only from my book, but I matched them with local artists. So then there was a context. And also it was a way to grow community and connect people. And it was amazing. I've been to every state all over the country, except for Louisiana. I know why we didn't go there, but I know next time I'm definitely going to go there if I can tour in this environment. Hopefully in a couple of years we will be able to, or tour virtually. I'm going to speed up a little bit, but this just tells you a little bit about that. Both of my books, I share the royalties, and I also give everyone their copyright, which is unusual too for anthologies. I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations. Many organizations gave us support, and that really just came from me and my husband working together. And we really did, it was a tremendous experience. We met so many people, and through these conversations, we really connected people to others. We created jobs, we created exhibition opportunities. It was substantial. We would ask people in the audience often about what they need and want. And sometimes they couldn't answer. They couldn't answer it because it was too hard for them. So when I would see that a lot of the audience was a deer in headlights, I would pass around pieces of paper. And here's some of the things that people asked. What makes you feel most vulnerable as an artist? How can I cultivate a sense of confidence in myself on a day-to-day basis? Now, in today's political climate, what can we do through art? It's a very important question. How do you create generosity when no one around you is reciprocating it? I'm being told I need to have a style and a stick to be known. No. When being paid for a piece of work, how do you know you aren't being cheated out of the value of your work? The reason why I like that question, it automatically says there's flaws in our very opaque, unregulated community and field, and that bothers me. So this is my most favorite one. Artists must be relevant to their communities beyond their work. And I can't agree with that more. So here's just a wrap up of the results of tours and advocacy: jobs, exhibitions, validation, which everyone needs, exchange and community building, connectivity with states and countries. Oh my God, it was tremendous. We raised over $400,000 through grants and venues in collaborating to be able to pay people to go all over the world. Actually, we went to other countries besides all over the United States. And then what do most artists want? They want validation, which is human, and I can understand that. Permission, which nobody needs, and certainly opportunities. It's really important too for artists to know their goals and needs and wants and what you can give. And these are the things that I have learned, and I've been learning from many different artists. And I'm actually going to give a talk through Speak Easy and just sharing different models of different artists and what they're doing today. Because when artists know what they need and want, besides money, because money is something that we naturally need because we need to survive, you know, it really concentrates on who that community is and how we can collaborate and move forward. So a lot of people say to me, what are the keys to sustaining a creative life? Well, you need to buy the books, and our royalty checks are so small. That's not the reason why we did it. The reason why we did it was to be able to create an open dialogue. And if these artists that are in these books were very courageous and amazing to be able to share a little bit of their stories to start a conversation, how can we get others to also share their models and share opportunities with one another? I always say, when I have an opportunity, I want to share that with others. Just like in collaborations with Rag, or opening the door with all those people who've never been into a gallery before and otherwise. So here are some elements, and I won't go through every one of them, but the last two are important. Rejection, there's no such thing. In most professional grants, et cetera, and I serve on a lot of panels, it's only a difference of opinion, really, unless you're really known to be difficult. And generosity really yields generosity. So I'm going to end with this thing I do, the director of the Chautauqua Visual Arts. And I really believe in this open, more contemporary pedagogy of actually taking down the division of media in order to get into a residency. A lot of people are in between painting, sculpture, animation, all different media. How do we include them? How can we be more inclusive? How can we be more inclusive in how things are taught and how people have or even conduct studio visits? That a studio visit actually is a shared experience, not that the power goes to the person who walks in the door. How do artists participate and steer their ship? How can we actually collaborate and learn from thought leaders? And how can we open the door where pedagogy and art institutions, or any institution, is intergenerational? So our program is open to ages 21 to 64 last year, open to any age over 21. It's just because New York State has a law that you can't drink until you're 21 years old. And I just want to make sure nobody gets sick. But here are the thought leaders that I work with in this program. And we started this when I got into this program well before George Floyd passed away, because in this country, we have a long way to go to be able to examine what inclusivity means. It's not just the people you bring in, it's the programming and what you share. We collaborate with different people, socially, otherwise, in theater, dance, music, opera. It's so much fun. Here's what our studios look like. Love it. We have a brave, safe space to exchange, but we also have technical classes to swim in, to experiment, to fail in. And this was the picture again. This is in 2019. You can see we had ages 21 to 52 that year. And the application process, and also everybody, the application process, and anybody who, it's very transparent. That's the word I was looking for. And anybody who doesn't get in gets feedback on their application. In addition, I get everyone together in a Zoom call who didn't get in. And then also you have the ability to be able to come in on a master's class with one of our lead faculty. I really believe in, if you're going to pay $30 for slide room, I'm going to give something back to you because it's not a failure. So this is our poster and you can see it. And to me, I wanted to create an opportunity to be able to, just like what Chautauqua does in their mission. Chautauqua's mission is to be able to bring thought leaders in to cultivate culture and then get that culture out into the world. And professional development is a part of that. So nuanced professional development in asking, what do artists need and want, and what can they give? So here's my contact information. I went over, didn't I? Oh, shoot, by 3 minutes. I'm so sorry. 2 minutes, actually. And I would love to hear, I'm sorry it went very fast. I wanted to squeeze everything in. And since it's recorded, hopefully people will slow it down, I guess. But I'm going to stop sharing here and wanted to just ask if anyone wanted to ask any questions. I wanted to thank everybody for even taking an evening to listen and allow me to share so much. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much, Sharon. If anyone has any question, please go ahead and type it into the chat and then we'll ask.
Oh, and now I'm looking at this. Oh, thank you so much. And Tanya, you were completely right. Yes, that chart is very powerful and it does show what we've lost during the pandemic. And although everybody here, I would say, well, not everyone, because some people I do know here, but some people I've never met before, they are on that chart now. So we've created seeds here, and it's up to everyone if they want to continue to have conversation in different forms. I know I was like a fire hose, but I'm sorry how that I did it very fast. Anybody want to talk about, oh, here's a question.
All right, it says, sometimes networking, though crucial, might sound intimidating for introverts. Do you have any advice for shy art majors?
Oh my God, totally do. Okay, so I always say that social media is really great. Even I've been teaching with Creative Capital online for at least 7 years, or 5 to 7 years. I can't even remember. So I'm very used to not seeing I do have jeans on and pants on right now, but not seeing them. It's the same in social media. You can like things and you can actually just even reach out to somebody that you feel comfortable with. The other thing I would say in reaching out to that person, if you're a shy person, just keep in mind that they have the same, probably similar vulnerabilities as you do, and that we're just human beings. And so think about what the risk and reward is. Usually the cause and effect is that if you do reach out to someone, they're in the most sincere way, they're going to probably respect that. What's so good about our community is, yes, we have some people who are narcissistic, who are not nice people. But for the most part, I've encountered people who have certain love because we share things that are so intimate. So I'd say hiding behind that computer and liking things, and then just being really careful and choosy who you want to reach out to. That's what I would say. You can experiment with me first if you'd like.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. We have another question. If you could talk a bit more about how you navigated acquiring public and private funding for different projects.
Well, how much time do I have? I'm really proud of this. for Chautauqua is the first time in our history. The last 2 seasons, I started my job about 3 years ago, so I've only had 2 seasons. We were able to pay the first season, everyone except for 2 full scholarships, and then the 2 left, we were just shy, just a little bit of money. We paid them mostly half for good scholarships, and then last year 100%. I really believe that if you have a cause, you try to find the match, just like I try to find architecture that meets with the idea, just like the media has to have this sort of in sync with the language that you're using the media for. So I've been doing a ton of cold calling and developing relationships with a lot of foundations, and actually finding people's email addresses and getting through, if you can believe it. But you really have to do a lot of research. And I enjoy research because I get to know people through that process. And then it's much more complicated. But I would say understanding what a letter of inquiry is, following directions, doing a lot of research, and keep trying until you get there. A lot of sources that we reach out for are donors. Right now, I'm seeking a ton of money for scholarships to pay for every single person who comes to Chautauqua, because we have a huge alumni program that can keep giving, not only to the community, but to those alumni and definitely to other artists in our community. So it's an investment in our life and our community in order to do that. So I'm hyper about it. And I just really believe in asking when I feel like there's value to what I'm sharing, and you find the match. That's the key.
That's great, thank you. So we have a question from Jessica Calderwood that says, do you have any suggestions for students or new graduates who want to get involved with public art projects? And then a follow-up, how do you start with something that seems so monumental?
You start small. So you start in really tiny steps. I still do small steps. I think the small steps are the best steps because they're the ones that are the most secure. Taking a leap, you could fall. And so if you're not sure of your footing, to get into public art, well, the first time you apply for everything that fits. So that means that if you try to find the language that speaks back to you, and if that's the same language that you feel, even in just how people, what their ideas are in their work or their values, or even the media that they work in, how that connects with you. And also public art's very specific oftentimes. So if it matches with your work or a challenge to your work. And then also there's a lot of resources out there for public art, a ton. If you go to the Americans for the Arts, so I will go here, everyone, Americans for the Arts, Americans for the Arts, and go to their public art network. You will find you have to be on their public art network in order to be get information. You know, I think that just getting calls all the time and doing that research and finding out what the best ones are for you, go for it. Just what do you have to lose, really? And the best thing is when you apply for things, what's so great about that is that when you apply for things, you have people introduce your work to people, and you never know where you'll see them again. So don't think of it as a bad thing. Before the next question, I have to give a shout out to a very close friend of mine, old friend of mine, Denise Mahoney Coffee. Denise, where are you? If you don't want to show your face, that's cool. You sent me some emails and I haven't even gotten to them because I get like 400 of them. But you have some really amazing people where you are in Indiana. And I want to share with everyone that Denise, she works at the museum there. Say hello and give her a hug for me. I'm sorry, Denise, it's just got to be the way it is. But we worked together at School of the Art Institute of Chicago years ago, like over 30 years ago. And there are people like that all over the world in our community. It's a small community. She's there. There's so many people. I love her too. Love you too. There's Carl Pope, who's in Indianapolis. There's William Potter, who's in Indianapolis. There's so many people in Indiana that are in your community that are accessible. So I had to do that. Sorry. Okay, next question. Denise, I promise I'll be in touch.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And great shout out to some dear friends of mine too. It was great.
Oh, good.
Love Carl.
Yes. He is huge. He's
so
in my book. He's amazing.
Okay, one question we have is when you get an artist block and you don't feel creative, how do you get past that? And also, how do you get back your confidence whenever you've doubted yourself?
Oh, first thing is you rely upon the people in that circle, in the intimate circle. You rely upon that first. You stay uncomfortable and you trust yourself. So I'm not in a block. Well, sort of. I'm in a block right now. I guess I will say that for the first time in a long time. I haven't painted in 5 years. I want to do paintings. And now I'm committed to doing paintings because I have a solo show in Chicago in October. And I set myself up to do that for a reason. Sometimes it's really good to set yourself up with deadlines. Deadlines are the best. Oh, deadlines are amazing. Duke Ellington said, I think it was Duke Ellington, I'm almost positive, I have to ask my husband, but I'm pretty sure he said, paraphrase, he wouldn't get anything done without deadlines. And so if you force yourself into that, and right now I'm painting, it's the most excruciating, horrible thing right now. They're ugly things, but at least I know they're ugly so I can resist against it to know what is working. So I would just say, try to push through it. And then sometimes when you don't do it and leave yourself time for things to go up to the surface and give yourself a break, that's good too. But you know what's great is you can decide and nobody else has to decide for you.
Thank you. Very important. Well, that's all we have for questions, unless anyone has any last ones. Oh, I did see. I do see one. Are the classrooms and studios at Chautauqua handicap accessible?
Yes. And if you are, we say on our application what you need and we'll accommodate you. And then also somebody has a question here. I think it's Tanya. Did you ask that question? Gosh, she said, through the entrepreneurial lens, what would you say about artists and arts administrators being entrepreneurial? Audrey, do you see that?
Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
Do it. Be entrepreneurial. Who cares? I think it's great. Be yourself. Be yourself. It's a short life. I like one of the things we do to talk about is I just don't judge. I'm learning not to do that. I got a lot of the other end of judgments, and I for myself have judged too much in my life. And I want to apologize to everyone that I have judged people where I shouldn't have. And I've learned that as I keep getting older, and just like so much energy. I mean, just be who you are, and you'll find the people who accept you. And those are the people you need to be around and nurture from. And that's how I've been able to survive. And I'm a real also proponent of therapy is amazing, and not being around people who are toxic, and try to be yourself. And as a strong woman who's very loud, who doesn't wear makeup, try not to care so much about the things that weigh you down or the petty things, because those things are not going to matter in the big scheme of things. They just take energy away from me giving to others.
Absolutely. We do have time for one final question. Jordan asks a great timely question. As someone who's struggling, as a struggling art student, how do you stay motivated even during these troubling times?
Well, I would just say knowledge is knowledge. So even though we're in isolation, and I'm here in Queens and it's really bad, like it was really bad here, but everybody's extremely careful. We rarely have I basically know every inch of every sidewalk around my apartment building. But I think I've been accepting of it. And to me, I found other things that are of joy. Like my husband now is this amazing chef. Never happened before. I redid my entire, we have a room where we just purged a lot. I found some fur coats from my grandmother that I did research and found a PETA that they'll take them and use them for other animals who are suffering. I mean, I would never have the time to do this stuff. And I think to give yourself a break, and it's hard, I think, for people who are single. I think that's really hard. And I think finding comfort in talking to people when you need to, and finding comfort where you need to. And also, like, I know people who are not making artwork. That's okay, because just because you have a job doesn't mean you have a day job, doesn't mean you're any less of an artist. I said this the other day. And also because it means then you're just a part-time artist, and that comes from judgment that says that an artist is only an artist if they make sales. That's ridiculous. And then the other thing, that's just ridiculous. That has full judgment. And then the other thing is that if you're not making work and you're just reading or enjoying what I enjoy, which is a lot of videos of kittens, I love them, I can't not go to sleep without them, then who cares? It's getting you through and actually easing your mind. And small steps are the best steps, as I said. So that's how I would say. And I would say, as a struggling artist financially, find things that are your assets that you can lean on, that aren't necessarily like selling work, which doesn't work for everybody, or I think anyone 100% of the time anyway. So I'll leave you with this example. Looking at yourself and what the natural assets are of yourself. Somebody from Hung Yi, who's an amazing director of the Queen's Arts Council, love her. She gave me an example of an actor. You know, people in the performing arts are really struggling, I think, quite a bit. She gave me an example of this actor who was just walking his dog. And then other people noticed how he was walking his dog. And I guess as an actor, he has this natural flair for walking his dog. Well, some people then said to him, "Would you walk my dog?" No. And then other people said, "Hey, could you pick up my dog? I need them to be walked." And then he made it a business, which a lot of people do, but he never thought of it. And then he started enjoying it. He started getting into it. And I know a friend of mine who also wasn't making any money as an actor, not even in COVID, and he sold blenders. And through that, he got to know all these people, and they made a whole play, or I forget, I think it was a play or a whole act, a one-person act about those people he met selling blenders. You know, there's a lot you can do with lemonade. I actually have, here's my iced tea with all the lemons here. And I would just say, you know, lemons are good for you, actually, and they don't actually ruin your teeth unless you eat into them. You know, I know that from the dentist, but I would just say, as metaphorically, that's what I would say. And also just be around people who love you. That's the most important thing. Love goes a long way. As cliche as it is, it's so important. Thank you for
fantastic.
that.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Sharon. We really appreciate having you join us tonight. I know that we really wanted to have you at Ball State campus, but this has been really wonderful. And we will have this on the School of Arts YouTube page, and it will be recorded and there for you to watch again.
Well, I'm not going to watch it, but everybody else will watch it. And listen, I would love to come and visit you after I get vaccinated, and after you all get vaccinated. And I see this as a beginning of a conversation with anybody who wishes. If you're going to email me, though, give me a couple days to get back to you. And I would just say, Fred, Jessica, Mary, and Audrey, and especially Fred, too, for sponsoring this, and Audrey for even thinking of me, and everybody here, thank you for taking the time. Time is not renewable, so I appreciate your time as a gift in hearing me tonight. So thank you very, very much. And I will see, hopefully I'll see you Friday.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Well, bye. Lots of hugs. Bye. Oh my God, awesome, Audrey. Thank you.